I, 26-year-old female, have an older sister, 32-year-old female, who had a tragic accident 3 years ago that left her paralyzed from the waist down. It's been rough for everyone, but especially for her, of course. Our family rallied around her, helping out as much as we can, and I've been there every step of the way because I love her so much. But since the accident, it feels like I don't deserve to have any good things happen to me, or at least I'm not allowed to talk about them. Every time something positive happens in my life, I get shut down by my family. When I got a promotion at work last year, I was so happy and excited to tell them. I thought my family would be happy for me, but when I tried to share the news, my mom pulled me aside and told me to not now because my sister had a tough day. I ended up keeping it to myself. 8 months ago, my boyfriend proposed. When I told him, my mom immediately changed the subject, later telling me that my sister was feeling down about her own marriage struggles. It's like anything good in my life is an offense to my sister's situation. This happened a few days ago. I've been saving up for years to buy my first new car. I finally managed to do it, and I was so excited. I thought my family would be happy for me, so I decided to tell them. As soon as the words were out of my mouth, the room went dead silent. My mom whispered to me, "This isn't the time. Think about your sister." My sister looked so sad, and I instantly felt like the worst person in the world. I just couldn't handle it anymore, and I said, "Can I share anything good in my life? I thought you'd all be happy for me." No one knew what to say, and I left the house. I've never done that before. Now I'm filled with regret and confusion. I love my sister, and I never want to hurt her, but it feels like I'm not allowed to have anything good happen to me. It's getting to the point where I feel like I'm walking on eggshells all the time. I understand my sister's life has changed drastically, and I'm genuinely supportive and have always been there for her. But sometimes I just want to be able to share my own life too. I feel so guilty for even feeling this way, like I'm being selfish or inconsiderate. Her husband and even my parents share things about their lives freely, and no one seems to mind. But as the younger sister, I'm not allowed to share anything good in front of her, so I don't hurt her feelings. I get it. I really do. I understand she's going through a lot, and I don't want to add to her pain. But it feels like I'm not allowed to have any joy in my life around my family. Now I know I owe my sister an apology for how I reacted. I never want to make her feel sad, but I'm struggling with how to approach my family. I don't feel like I should apologize to them, and honestly, I don't think I'll be sharing anything with them in the future. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the idiot at all, but I'm curious, how does your sister feel about all this? Is she genuinely hurt whenever you share these positive things? Or is your mom just being overprotective and jumping the gun? Has there always been this kind of dynamic between you and your sister to a lesser extent before this? It just seems incredibly weird that you're the only person in your family who is not allowed to share good news. Comment 2, not the idiot. You have nothing to feel guilty for and owe nobody any apologies. Hopefully, if they have any sense of decency, what you said gave them something to think about. If so, long overdue, but better late than never. If the fact they've collectively been acting like didn't click, then it's time for you to move on and share more of your life with people who care about you. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading. After I stormed out of the house, I spent the night at my boyfriend's place. I was too upset to go back home. The next morning, I woke up to a bunch of missed calls and texts from my mom and dad, asking me to come back and talk things out. I ignored them for a while, but eventually I knew I had to face the music. So I went back home that evening. When I walked in, the atmosphere was tense. My mom and dad were sitting in the living room, and my sister was in her room. My mom started by saying they understood why I was upset, but that I needed to be more considerate of my sister's feelings. I felt like they were missing the point entirely. I tried to explain that I wasn't trying to hurt anyone, but I needed to feel like my life mattered too. My dad nodded, but my mom seemed unconvinced. I decided to apologize to my sister first. I knocked on her door and went in. She was lying on her bed looking tired and sad. I told her I was sorry for how I reacted and that I never meant to make her feel worse. She said she understood, but that it was hard for her to see me happy when she felt so stuck. I felt a pang of guilt, but also frustration. I wanted to help her, but I also needed to live my own life. A few days later, my boyfriend and I had a long talk about everything. He suggested that maybe we should consider moving in together. It would give me some space from my family and allow us to start our life together. I was hesitant at first because I didn't want to abandon my sister, but the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. I needed to find a balance between supporting her and living my own life. I brought up the idea to my parents, and they were surprisingly supportive. They said they understood I needed my own space and that they would make sure my sister was taken care of. My sister, on the other hand, was not happy about it. She felt like I was abandoning her, and it broke my heart. I tried to reassure her that I would still be there for her, but she was inconsolable. A week later, my boyfriend and I found a small apartment not too far from my parents' house. We started moving in, and I felt a mix of excitement and guilt. I knew this was the right decision for me, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was letting my sister down. My parents helped us move, and my mom even brought over some home-cooked meals to make the transition easier. Things seemed to be settling down, but then I made a mistake that changed everything. I had planned a small housewarming party with a few close friends and family. I thought it would be a good way to show my sister that I wasn't abandoning her and that she was still a big part of my life. I invited her, my parents, and a few friends. My sister reluctantly agreed to come. The night of the party, everything was going well. People were mingling, and there was a lot of laughter and good vibes. I was feeling hopeful that maybe things could get better. But then, in a moment of excitement, I announced that my boyfriend and I were planning to get married next year. The room went silent, and I immediately regretted it. My sister's face fell, and she wheeled herself out of the room without saying a word. I followed her, trying to apologize, but she wouldn't listen. She accused me of being selfish and only thinking about myself. She said I was rubbing my happiness in her face and that I didn't care about her feelings. I was devastated. I tried to explain that I wanted her to be a part of my happiness, but she wouldn't hear it. She left the party, and my parents followed her. The next day, my mom called me and said my sister didn't want to see me for a while. She needed space to process everything. I felt like my world was falling apart. I had tried so hard to balance my life and my sister's needs, but it seemed like nothing I did was right. My boyfriend tried to comfort me, but I felt like I had lost my family. In the following days, I tried to reach out to my sister, but she wouldn't respond. My parents were caught in the middle, trying to support both of us. I felt isolated and alone. I started questioning if I had made the right decisions. Maybe I should have stayed at home and continued to put my sister's needs first. But then I knew I couldn't live my life in the shadows forever. As I struggled with these thoughts, I remembered a conversation I had with my sister years ago, before the accident. We were talking about our dreams and future plans. She had always been the adventurous one, encouraging me to take risks and follow my heart. I realized that she was still in there somewhere, buried under the pain and frustration. I just needed to find a way to reach her. But before I could figure out how to do that, something else happened. My sister's husband, who had been distant and cold since the accident, decided to file for divorce. He said he couldn't handle the stress and responsibility anymore. My sister was devastated, and my parents were furious. They blamed him for abandoning her when she needed him the most. This new development threw everything into chaos. My sister was inconsolable, and my parents were struggling to keep everything together. I felt even more guilty for moving out and starting my own life. I wanted to help, but I didn't know how. My boyfriend suggested that maybe we should postpone our wedding plans until things settled down, and I agreed. It didn't feel right to celebrate when my sister's life was falling apart. So here I am, trying to navigate this mess. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know that I need to find a way to support my sister without losing myself in the process. It's a delicate balance, and I'm still figuring it out. Thanks for reading. Am I the idiot for cutting off my emotionally absent mom after she ditched my sister's baby shower? Growing up, my dad stayed at home while my mom worked. While my mom financially provided for my sister and myself, she was emotionally hands-off. She came to a ballet recital here and there, but didn't want to help with homework, didn't want to listen when we needed advice, etc. Our dad did 95% of the emotional labor. I later found out from my mom that my dad was the one who wanted kids. She loved her career and didn't mind providing financially, but she did not want to do any of the stuff related to raising us outside of that. I am very grateful she provided for us financially, but I do admit it hurts that she wasn't there when we needed her. She was physically present, but not emotionally present. To add, as this has come up, to be clear, the arrangement was my mother's idea, not my father's. That being said, I do agree that my father was equally as selfish for making this arrangement. My dad always did grand gestures for her. Mother's Day was always a big deal with a huge brunch, flowers, gifts. She was spoiled. She did nothing for him on Father's Day. He had to do everything for himself until my sister and I were old enough to do stuff for him. I get that was the arrangement they had, but I know it made my dad sad. I once asked why he didn't get the same hoopla our mom got, and he just sadly said, "Father's Day isn't as important as Mother's Day." As adults, my sister and I have tried to rectify it. We do Father's Day up big and our dad loves it. We grill for him, just as he taught us, and throw a huge BBQ with some other family members. However, we've turned Mother's Day very low-key. We still celebrate our mom, but she usually gets a quiet lunch at a restaurant of her choice and a few gifts. After my mom ended up skipping my sister's baby shower this year because she didn't see the big deal with someone having a baby, my sister wanted to do nothing for her. We sent gifts but spent Mother's Day with each other, our husbands, and our own kids. My mom told us after Father's Day that she was hurt we didn't do more for her in recent years. I said that since she put in almost no emotional labor into raising us, we are putting none into her. She said that our father and I had an agreement. I pointed out that yes, but we never agreed to it, and it wasn't fair that we grew up with an emotionally absent mother who didn't want us. And to be fair, we have had this conversation with our dad as well, and he admits it wasn't fair to us either. I also said if she didn't want kids, then why should she be celebrated as a mom? My mom is upset with both of us and called us ungrateful brats. My dad feels bad for her, but supports our choice. Am I the idiot? Now for an update. To those asking how I'd feel if my dad were the one that acted like this, how I feel about dads who do this in general, they suck just as much. And it's not fair to the kids, regardless of whatever agreement spouses come to. This is not gender specific. While some people may have a gender bias, I do not. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the idiot. I'm so sorry. If you can afford it, therapy may help. It is best for childhood trauma so that you don't bring it into your adult relationships and your relationships with your children. When I was reading this, I was asking myself if someone switched the genders on the parents in their positions. I swear I read this about dad, mom, and the dad was the one who was emotionally distant and people thought that was normal, blah, blah, blah. Comment 2. Even disregarding how you all were raised and your parents' agreement about that, you're adults now, and your mom is still not giving either of you any care. She can't be bothered to attend her daughter's baby shower, but thinks you all should make a fuss over her for Mother's Day. Nope, not how that works. I would give her as much energy as she gives you, which would free up a lot of your time, money, and energy. Not the idiot. Now for the update, thanks for reading the last post. So after the whole Mother's Day fallout, things got even more complicated. My sister and I decided to have a sit-down with our mom to try and clear the air. We thought maybe if we explained our feelings in person, she might understand where we were coming from, but it didn't go as planned. When we met up, my mom was defensive from the start. She kept saying that she did her part by providing for us financially and that we were being unfair. My sister tried to explain how much it hurt growing up without her emotional support, but my mom just brushed it off, saying we were too sensitive. It was like talking to a wall. We left the meeting feeling even more frustrated and hurt. A few days later, my dad called me and said my mom had been crying and was really upset. He asked if we could try to make peace with her. I felt torn because I didn't want to hurt my mom, but I also didn't want to ignore our feelings. My sister and I talked about it and decided to give it one more shot, but this time we try a different approach. We invited my mom over for dinner, hoping a more relaxed setting might help. We cooked her favorite meal and tried to keep the conversation light at first. But as soon as we brought up the topic of our childhood again, she shut down. She accused us of ganging up on her and said we were ungrateful for everything she did for us. It was clear she wasn't ready to hear us out. After that, my sister and I decided to take a step back. We needed some space to process everything. But then something unexpected happened. My mom sent us an email saying she wanted to go to family therapy. She said she realized she might have been too harsh and wanted to try to understand our perspective. We were shocked but hopeful. Maybe this was the breakthrough we needed. We started therapy sessions the following week. The therapist was great and really helped us open up. My mom listened more than she had before, but it was still hard for her to accept that she had hurt us. The therapist suggested we write letters to each other, explaining our feelings. My sister and I poured our hearts out in those letters, hoping it would help my mom see things from our point of view. When my mom read our letters, she cried. She said she never realized how much her absence affected us. It was a small step, but it felt like progress. We continued therapy for a few more weeks, and things seemed to be getting better. My mom was making an effort to be more emotionally present, and we were starting to feel hopeful about our relationship. But then came the risk that could make or break everything. My mom got a job offer in another state. It was a huge opportunity for her, something she had always wanted. She was excited but also worried about what it would mean for our family. She asked us what we thought she should do. My sister and I were conflicted. On one hand, we wanted her to be happy and pursue her dreams. On the other hand, we were just starting to rebuild our relationship and we were afraid this move would set us back. We told her we supported her decision, whatever it might be, but deep down we were scared. My mom decided to take the job. She said she needed to do this for herself and promised to stay in touch. We tried to be supportive, but it was hard. The first few weeks after she moved were tough. We talked on the phone and had video calls, but it wasn't the same. The distance made it harder to continue the progress we had made in therapy. Then the fallout started. My mom got busy with her new job and our calls became less frequent. She missed a few important family events and it felt like we were back to square one. My sister and I tried to keep the lines of communication open, but it was clear my mom was more focused on her career than on rebuilding our relationship. It was during this time that I started reflecting on our family history. I remembered how my dad had always been there for us, even when it wasn't easy. He sacrificed so much to make sure we felt loved and supported. I realized that my mom's decision to move was just another example of her putting her career above her family. It hurt, but it also made me appreciate my dad even more. I thought about the times when my dad would stay up late helping us with school projects or comforting us when we were upset. He never complained, even though he must have been exhausted. I remembered how he would always make time for us no matter what. It made me see just how much he had given up for our sake. As for my mom, I started to understand that she was never going to change. She loved her career and that was her priority. It wasn't fair to us, but it was the reality. My sister and I decided to focus on the positive relationships in our lives and not let our mom's absence define us. In the end, the risk my mom took by moving away did break everything. Our relationship with her is strained, and it feels like we're back to where we started. But it also brought my sister and me closer together. We've leaned on each other for support and have become even more determined to be there for our own kids in ways our mom never was for us. Thanks for reading. Am I the idiot for warning my sister's boyfriend about her planned ambush and ruining her birthday dinner? My family went out for dinner a few days ago to celebrate my sister Jen's birthday. When we got to the restaurant, Jen was already there alone. She said she told her boyfriend Blake the time got pushed back 30 minutes because she needed to talk to us alone. Jen was mad at Blake for not getting her any birthday gifts and only took her out to dinner to a place they go to often. Our parents understood her being upset, and she asked if they would try talking to him because she couldn't get Blake to understand how hurtful that was. I asked her if she had given him her usual present for his birthday or last holiday, and Jen said that wasn't important. For context, my sister's idea of a gift for her partner is lingerie and intimacy, and only ever that. I don't know about her past relationships, but I do know in the 2 years they've been together, I've heard and seen Blake give her gift ideas for him, and he winds up buying them for himself after the fact. He's come to Christmas at our house with gifts for Jen, and Jen always shows up empty-handed for him, saying she'd give him his present later. I told Jen it sounded like she got as good as she gives, whereas our parents said I should be concerned someone would be dismissive and vindictive toward my sister. Our parents said they'd think about talking to him based on his behavior when he arrived. So I texted Blake that Jen was setting him up for a lecture. He wound up not showing up. Last night, Jen called me angry. She saw my text to him and realized my text was the reason he canceled and accused me of not having her back, and she's told our parents I butt into their relationship, but I figure she was trying to get us involved in her relationship anyway. I probably could have just stayed quiet, but at the time it didn't sit right with me what she was trying to do. Am I the idiot? Now for an update, thank you everyone for the responses. I wouldn't say my sister is the golden child since we were treated equally growing up. More that our parents are family first no matter what. This is not the first time she's tried getting others to fight her battles. Just the first time she's done it in public and with our parents. I do not know if our parents know about her gift giving, but it's pretty easy to figure out based on her comments being the same with every boyfriend she's had since high school. And no, I do not have feelings for Blake. I have a boyfriend of my own whom I love very much. They are broken up, and as some of you guessed, Jen is blaming me. But honestly, I wasn't expecting to come through unscathed after I warned him. I got the news from our mother who called earlier to hark on me not backing my sister up against a man who disregarded her wishes on an important day and bailed. I told Mom there are times you absolutely do have family's back. But when your daughter only ever forwards nature's gift card to her partners on gift-giving occasions knowing they've asked for something else, and then involves the entire family for getting her process turned around on her, isn't it? Instead of agreeing to a public intervention, she should have told Jen to leave us out of it and keep it between them. Maybe shut down Jen's all men need is intimacy to be happy rhetoric years ago, and maybe she'd have a son-in-law by now, so that's all that. Thanks again. I think I'm going to go buy some just for the hell of it gifts for my own boyfriend. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the idiot. Let's ignore that Jen is in the wrong and concentrate on your involvement. Jen invited, nay, urged her parents to meddle in her relationship. She has no moral high ground to object to her sister also meddling. In fact, if you had meddled in her favor, she would have been really happy about it. You did the right thing in warning Blake about the 3-person ambush. Comment 2, not the idiot. She pulled you all into her relationship and then wanted sympathy when it wasn't warranted. Your sister doesn't sound like relationship material for Blake. Kind of self-absorbed. You did right to warn him ahead of time. The only thing I wonder is why he felt it important to share your text with her. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading. So after the whole dinner fiasco, things have been pretty tense around here. The day after Jen and Blake broke up, Jen moved back in with our parents. She was really upset and kept saying it was all my fault. Our parents were trying to comfort her, but it was clear they were also a bit annoyed with the whole situation. They didn't say it outright, but I could tell they were frustrated with how everything went down. Jen kept going on about how Blake was the worst boyfriend ever and how he never appreciated her. I tried to stay out of it, but it was hard when she was so loud about it. 2 days later, I made a big mistake. I was talking to my boyfriend about everything that happened, and I accidentally mentioned that Jen's idea of a gift was always lingerie and intimacy. I didn't think much of it at the time, but my boyfriend ended up telling one of his friends, who happens to be friends with Blake. Word got back to Blake and he was furious. He called Jen and told her what I had said. Jen was livid. She stormed into my room and started yelling at me, saying I had no right to talk about her personal life like that. I tried to apologize, but she wasn't having it. She said I had ruined her relationship and now I was ruining her reputation. The next day, our parents sat me down for a talk. They were really disappointed in me for talking about Jen's personal life. They said I should have known better and that I needed to apologize to Jen. I felt terrible, but I also felt like Jen was partly to blame for dragging us all into her relationship drama in the first place. I apologized to Jen, but she didn't seem to care. She just kept saying that I had ruined everything. Meanwhile, Blake reached out to me. He wanted to talk about what had happened and get my side of the story. I agreed to meet up with him, thinking it might help clear the air. When we met, he was surprisingly calm. He said he understood why I had warned him about the dinner, but he was hurt that Jen had involved the whole family in their issues. He also said he was tired of always being the one to put in effort, while Jen just expected him to be happy with her gifts. It was clear he was really hurt by the whole situation. As we talked, I realized that Blake genuinely cared about Jen, but he felt like she didn't respect him or their relationship. He said he had tried to talk to her about it multiple times, but she always brushed him off. He thanked me for being honest with him, even though it had caused a lot of drama. I felt a bit better after our talk, but I knew things were still a mess. Back at home, things were still tense. Jen was barely speaking to me, and our parents were still upset. I tried to keep my distance and give everyone some space. I spent a lot of time thinking about everything that had happened and how I could have handled things differently. I realized that I should have stayed out of Jen's relationship issues and let her handle things on her own. But at the same time, I felt like she needed to take responsibility for her actions and stop dragging everyone else into her problems. A few days later, I overheard Jen talking to our mom about her past relationships. She was saying how she always felt like she had to be the perfect girlfriend and that giving lingerie and intimacy was her way of showing love. Our mom tried to comfort her, saying that she didn't need to be perfect and that she deserved someone who appreciated her for who she was. It was a really emotional conversation, and it made me realize that Jen had a lot of insecurities that she was dealing with. I started to see things from Jen's perspective a bit more. She wasn't just being selfish. She was struggling with her own issues and trying to figure out how to be in a healthy relationship. It didn't excuse her behavior, but it helped me understand why she acted the way she did. I decided to try and talk to her again, this time with more empathy. When I approached Jen, she was still pretty cold towards me. I told her that I was sorry for talking about her personal life and that I understood she was going through a lot. I said I wanted to be there for her and help her figure things out. She didn't say much, but she seemed to appreciate the gesture. It was a small step, but it felt like progress. In the days that followed, Jen and I started talking more. She opened up about her insecurities and how she felt like she was never good enough for her partners. I tried to be supportive and offer advice without being judgmental. It was a slow process, but we were starting to rebuild our relationship. As for Blake, he decided to take some time for himself and focus on his own well-being. He said he still cared about Jen, but he needed to figure out what he wanted in a relationship. I respected his decision and wished him the best. Looking back, I realized that my mistake had caused a lot of pain and drama, but it also led to some important conversations and growth. Jen and I were starting to understand each other better, and I hoped that she would learn from this experience and work on her own issues. It wasn't an easy journey, but it felt like we were moving in the right direction. Thanks for reading. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.